My wife is alright. I don't know why everyone keeps asking. Sure, the cancer came on suddenly and aggressively, but she had an amazing team of doctors who have done everything they can. That's a direct quote too. Her main doctor, Dr. Andrews, told me so himself. When I asked to take her home to let her finish recovering from all her treatments, they seemed hesitant. I'm sure they would have loved to be able to bill us for the rest of her recovery time spent in the hospital, but what she really needed was just to come home and recuperate, so they eventually agreed. The first night we got home, she was especially quiet. It must have been really strange for her to see the house again after so many months away. I helped her get comfortable in bed and decided to turn in myself. It had been so long since I was able to hold her as we drifted off to sleep. It's the most peace either of us had felt in so long. I woke up before her in the morning and began to make a big Saturday morning breakfast. I knew her appetite would be small still, but I figured she'd appreciate the gesture. When I was finished, I went to our room and carried her to the table. After spending so much time lying sick in bed, her muscles had atrophied. While we ate, I brought up the idea of having a physical therapist come to help her regain her mobility. She stared at her plate, not saying a word. I could tell I hurt her feelings, pointing out how illness has changed her once strong body to mere flesh and bones. I tried to redirect the conversation, but she wasn't hungry anymore. I took her back to our room so she could rest a while. The next few months were hard on us. We tried to readjust to living together, but it wasn't as easy as it had been before. I still had to work my 9 to 5, and she insisted on going to bed as soon as I got home. Honestly, I was starting to get a little pissed off. I was doing everything under the sun for her, and she couldn't humor me with just a little attention when I got home. I figured maybe she was depressed. Being in our house, remembering our old lives together, our son was across the country now too, studying at college. His semester break was only a week or so away, so I called him up and asked if he would be willing to come visit for a while, rather than stay at his apartment as he had planned. He was more excited about the idea than I had thought. He hadn't been home since the week his mother left the hospital, and I knew they missed each other terribly. They've always been so close. The day finally arrived and I went to the airport to pick him up. We chatted the whole way home about his classes, friends, and some new girl he was seeing. We were so deep in conversation, I almost missed our road, and then almost missed our driveway a few moments later. As we approached the house, my son began to act strangely. He claimed he could smell a dead animal somewhere, possibly under the porch. I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. When I opened the front door, he began to gag. "Dad, seriously, it smells like something died. Maybe it's in the wall." "I really don't know what you mean, kiddo. Mom and I haven't smelled anything." "You and Mom?" "Yeah, did you forget? The doctors let me bring her home to recover." We were now standing inside the foyer, the stairs to our bedroom directly to the left. "Go on up and see her. She's been waiting for you." My son's face contorted in a combination of disgust and fear. What the hell is wrong with him? I wondered as I followed David up the stairs. When we were at the top, he slowly walked into our bedroom and let out the most bone-chilling scream I've ever heard. "Dad, what the fuck? I mean, seriously, what the fuck? Oh my god, why the hell is Mom's body in your goddamn bed? Jesus Christ, I knew you were having a hard time with her death, but this is just sick." "David, what the hell are you talking about?" I asked, slightly irritated, as I sat down beside my wife. I didn't know how she could remain so calm during all this. I gotta go. I'm gonna go. Jesus Christ, I think I'm gonna be sick. Dad, we have to call someone. They'll understand, but you can't leave her here to rot." David started walking towards the stairs. He lost his mind, I thought. I had better stop him before he goes to call Lord knows who and get himself locked up in the loony bin. I approached my son and tried to grab his arm, to get him to turn around to see that his mother was perfectly fine, but he flinched, hard. He was just so close to the edge of the stairs and he lost his footing. Even though it took me a few seconds to get to the bottom of the stairs, there was already a huge pool of blood pouring from his head. "Rest, that's all you need, Davy. Just a little rest. I'll help you get cleaned up and back to your room." When I woke up this morning, the house was quiet. I peeked into David's room, but he was still asleep. Must be tired from all those finals, or maybe the long flight yesterday. I crept quietly into the kitchen, carefully not to wake anyone else up. I wanted our big Saturday breakfast to be a pleasant surprise for them. As I cooked, I couldn't help but smile. My wife is alright, my son is alright, I am alright. My wife had been seeing Devin for years. I only found out about 2 years ago, and she told me 3 months after that. I was devastated. My world completely shattered. We'd met in college, and I thought we were one of the few lucky couples in the world to have the perfect love story, the perfect relationship. They met at some work function. I guess he was charming enough to get her into bed, and good enough to keep her coming back. He too was married, and to this day, his wife doesn't know about mine. The day after Evie told me, I filed for divorce. My story would be pretty routine if it ended there. Since I'm here sharing the events of my past year and a half, I'm sure you can tell it didn't all go as planned. After 3 months after I had filed the papers, I got a call from the hospital. Evie has been admitted and hadn't got around to changing me as her emergency contact. I rushed over as soon as I could. Just because we were getting divorced didn't mean I no longer cared about her. When I arrived, the doctor informed me that although they knew she was sick, they couldn't be sure what exactly the issue was. When I told him we were going through a divorce, he said it was possible she was suffering from Munchausen syndrome and trying to win me back by making me her caretaker. I know that was not possible. Evie had always been so independent, so self-sufficient. Even though she didn't want the divorce, she would never make herself look weaker in order to get me back. I took her home as soon as they would let me. I think she was glad to be back in the house as she'd been staying in a rotten little apartment off the highway since we separated. I called a lawyer a few days later to see if it was possible that she contracted her illness from living in subpar conditions. If some negligent landlord had caused my wife's deteriorating health, they were going to pay. I won't lie, her illness did bring us closer. My once disinterested wife was now elated when I would get home from work. Our marriage really improved, and I eventually withdrew my divorce petition. A few, actually most, of our friends began to agree with the first doctor's diagnosis. They warned me that Evie was manipulating me to come back to her, or at the very least, let her back into the house. But I just knew it couldn't be true, so I continued to do all I could to make her better. Our last month together was perfect. She was the exact kind of wife I had always wanted. One who was happy and devoted. I can't even describe the pain I felt when I woke up one morning and she wasn't breathing. I called 911 immediately, but it was already too late. Since they were concerned about the possibility of Munchausen's, the doctors asked if I would allow an autopsy. I was reluctant, but I knew the autopsy was the only way to prove that Evie wouldn't hurt herself. But when the results came back, it showed her body had been riddled with various poisons, most predominantly drain cleaner. In small enough doses, it had caused her illness and eventually death. Here's the thing. I know Evie didn't kill herself or even make herself sick. She was always too damn independent. She didn't need anyone, especially me. But those few months where she was sick, those were the best of our whole marriage. And although I miss her every day, I don't regret a single thing I did, not for a second.